Hello guys, this is Naruto-kun and we are back with our new fanfic, which is what if Sanzo put Naruto into CRA with multiple Konoichi part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic, then please press the like button and please subscribe to the channel. It motivates me to upload more fanfic like these for you all. Now let's start the fanfiction. I swore that I will bring you back to Konoha even if I would have to break every bone in your body, yelled a blonde-haired boy with red eyes as he slammed a ball of chakra into a ball of lightning that was slammed by a black-haired boy. Naruto Uzumaki and Sasuke Uchiha were battling in the Valley of the End as the Uchiha sought the snake Sannin Orochimaru for power that he needed to complete his revenge. Suddenly, there was a huge explosion that engulfed this valley. Once the smoke has been cleared, there was Naruto standing over Sasuke's unconscious form, yet the Uchiha is still alive. The blonde then carried the unconscious Uchiha back to Konoha. While Naruto was carrying Sasuke on his back, he then saw the field where he had his fight against the last Kagaya. He was still struggling to live while coming close to being dead. Naruto then went closer to the Shikatsumiku user and used his Biju's chakra to revive the boy. Once the Kagaya had woken up, he used a bone at him. "What are you doing here, trash ninja?" the boy asked angrily. "Hey, I just saved your life, and all I get in return is a bone in my face," Naruto asked with a hint of annoyance. "I just brought you back from the dead. For a trash ninja, you have saved my life. How can I ever thank you?" he said. "Well, for starters, you can tell me your name," Naruto replied back as he and Sasuke started to go back with the Kagaya boy tagging along. "My name's Kimimaro Kagaya, and I used to serve Orochimaru-sama," Kimimaro stated as Naruto made a face at the mention of the snake bastard's name. "You mean the hubby Tem that wanted Sasuke for his body?" the blonde asked. "You got it right. I take it that you must be a Jinchuriki," Kimimaro said as they went to the destroyed forest where Shikamaru had his battle with a certain full-mouthed redhead with an intervention by a certain fan user. "Wait, if you can revive me with the Biju's chakra inside of you, you can revive everyone else. I think we got there a little too late for that," Naruto said as an unconscious red-headed girl was sitting on a log. Kimimaro then went up to her and checked her pulse. "What is it? This girl has been conscious for a short while. Whoever revived her must have known what they were doing," Kimimaro replied as the redhead regained consciousness. "So, you are alive again, Tayuya. Bone freak, what the hell happened to you?" Tayuya asked angrily. She then looked at Naruto and the body that he was carrying. "I recognize this brat anywhere. He was with that pineapple-headed moron when you took the coffin, and I guess that's Orochimaru-sama's new vessel that never went through. By the way, my name's Naruto Uzumaki," Naruto said as Kimimaro lifted Tayuya and placed her in his back. The blonde then carried Sasuke and resumed their journey. When they reached a clearing where Kiba had his fight with a certain Rashomon summoner and a certain puppet user, Kimimaro was unsurprised at the figure of a boy sitting down on the ground with a head in his back. "So, the mystery healer has healed to you as well, Saken?" Kimimaro asked the healing boy. "Geez, so Tayuya is still alive after all," Saken replied as his brother Uken woke up. "I'm guessing that Kidomaru and Jirobo have been healed by the same guy that healed us." "Yeah, by the way," the Kagaya user said as he beckoned for Naruto to come closer. "This is Naruto. Oh yeah, he was with those brats that were chasing after the boy that he's now carrying," Saken replied as he struggled to get up. "Naruto, isn't it?" "Yes, what is it, Saken?" Naruto asked. "Can you make bunchins for me?" Saken requested as Naruto placed Sasuke down and made 10 cage bunchins. The two bunchins then carried the said nin and went away with the real Naruto carrying Sasuke and Kimimaro carrying Tayuya on his back. By the time that the group had reached another part of the forest, there were two boys that were hailing them, one of them having 6 arms and the other one an orange hair. Kimimaro grinned as they landed on them. "So, you guys are alive again, Kimimaro said as the orange-haired fat boy was massaging his stomach. "Jirobo, You can worry about food later. Alright, but I want to know who is this kid with a hideous orange jumpsuit? Jirobo asked. I'm sure you all recognize him. The Kagaya smirked as the other two former Sound 4 gasped. It's that clone boy that was with that shadow lover. Jirobo said as the six-armed boy grinned. Good to see Tayuya still sleeping. He said as Sakin grunted in annoyance. Geez, Kidomaru. At least we won't have to hear Tayuya swear all over again. Sakin responded in laughter. At that moment, the said redhead woke up, groaning about the pain that she endured from her last battle. Hello, Tayuya. Geez, did I have to wake the bleep up at this bleep-ing moment? Tayuya groaned as Jirobo sighed. Well, so much for her foulmouth. The fat man replied as they were nearing Konohagakure. While Naruto was about to go into the village, he beckoned the X-Sound 5 to come closer to him. Listen, if I get in any trouble, I'm sending out a signal for you guys to help me in any way. He instructed as he went in the village gates with the unconscious Uchiha in tow. As soon as the blonde went deeper into the village, a pink-haired girl came up to him. Sasuke, she said as Sasuke was laid down on the ground. Sakura Haruno was a proclaimed fangirl of the said unconscious Uchiha who then turned her face towards the blonde with anger and rage. Naruto, you were supposed to bring my precious Sasuke-kun back to me unharmed. Sakura yelled as she got out her kunai and started to stab him. At her words, the villagers started to converge in on him. The filthy demon undesirable has harmed the Uchiha. Kill him along with the rest of the ingrates. One villager yelled. For what purpose do we kill those ingrates? For the purification of our pure race. The rest of the villagers had replied as they raised their weapons and started to attack the blonde Jinchuriki. At the moment, Naruto threw a smoke pellet into the sky and it exploded. A few minutes later, the X-Sound 5 had surrounded him. There are more undesirables to kill. Bastards, they're way worse than the average trash. Sakin said as charged with a kunai into a villager while Jirobo had blocked the other villagers from killing Naruto. Go to Kimimaro and stay there for a while. Jirobo said as Naruto ran. He then turned to the pursuing villagers and incoming shinobi who were hell-bent on killing the blonde. Kidomaru, where's Tayuya? Apparently, she is with Kimimaro at the moment. Kidomaru replied as he blocked a kick from an Anbu. He looked at the uniform of the Anbu and cursed himself. Crap, they aren't the regular Anbu. At that moment the Godime Hokage has shown up to the commotion, her face angry. Tsunade of the legendary Sannin was furious at the source of the problem. Stop this right now, Tsunade yelled as the villagers turned towards her. Naruto isn't accused of anything yet you attack him. That filthy demon should die, yelled an offending villager with an arm up in an angle. It's you and the rest of the Hokages that aren't trying to exterminate those ingrates. We have a policy of equality in this village. The Sannin replied back with a dangerous tone. At the moment, the council had shown up with a one-armed man on a cane leading the pack. Naruto Uzumaki, by order of the High Council, we sentence you to death for crimes against the village, the one-armed man said, but another commotion was heard among the council members. Objection, the Uchiha should be tried because he was going to defect from this village, replied a white-eyed man among the crowd. Obviously, you're just trying to advocate genocide on the Jinchuriki population that moved from the other continent. Hiyashi, you don't have a say in this matter. The leader of the council has the power to advocate laws that will not be overruled by the Hokage or the votes of other council members. Danzo said with malice in his tone. Should you dare to oppose me again, I will have you executed. You can't execute a council member. A blonde-haired man yelled at Danzo with disgust in his tone. You kill the head of the Hyuga clan, we're going to have a problem since the true heir is in the side branch, and there are no male heirs in the main branch. That goes to you too, Inoichi. Danzo replied. At the moment, 5 Root Anbu members with swords rose up and ready to attack were forced to battle the rushing Kagaya with his bone katana drawn. Get Tayuya out of here, Naruto. Kimimaro said as he aimed a punch at a Root Anbu member. He then rallied the other X-Sound 5 members to cover their retreat. Sakin, stall these guys. Who is that? Kidomaru asked as an unknown figure appeared in between the two combatants. Kidomaru and Jirobo realized that it was the same man that healed the other 4 ex-Oto Nin. So, thanks again, friend. You're welcome. The figure replied as he loosened up his clothing and outdrawn a bone katana. Kimimaro was shocked at the sight of another Shikatsumyaku user. But what was even better was that he had a Sharingan eye activated. It's been a while, Kimimaro. Mamoru Itoko, Kimimaro gasped as Kidomaru looked at him with surprise. You've guessed it. He is related to me, as well as the Uchiha clan. How so? Kidomaru replied. I'll tell you later. The Kagaya replied as he retreated from the battle, along with the mystery man and the 2 ex-Oto Nin. When they were out of the village, Danzo gave out one order. Kill them. Immediately, 15 Konoha hunter nins rushed out of the village in pursuit of the retreating ninja. The mystery man then stayed to fight the hunter nin while Kimimaro and Naruto rushed on. Don't worry about me, I'll be fine, he said as Naruto rushed out into the forest. He then turned to the pursuing hunter nin. Before you forget, let me tell you my name. I'm Mamoru Uchiha Kagaya Hibiki of the Hibiki clan. Yeah, let us go so we can kill those undesirables, replied one Root Anbu member. At that moment, Mamoru made a hand sign. Hyoten. Roga Nadare no Jutsu. Mamoru shouted as the forest suddenly grew cold and an ice wolf had attacked the Root Anbu. The Hyoten user then made a taijutsu movement as a boulder was hurled into an unlucky Root Anbu ninja, killing him instantly. Men, let's kill him together. The leader of the squad yelled as Mamoru held both arms with 2 fingers up in the sky. He twirled both arms in a circle clockwise, and back counterclockwise. Suddenly, a surge of electricity was formed in his arms, creating the whips. Let's see you guys handle my lightning bending. Mamoru yelled as he twirled a lightning whip to the leader, whipping his chest and killing him. He then made a hand sign. Raiden. Mirai Bakuden no Jutsu. Suddenly, the whips from Mamoru's arms became electric snakes that were about to explode. The Root Anbu decided to retreat from the battle for now, but it won't be the last battle until in the future. The said special bender nin then joined up with the rest of the fleeing ninjas. When Mamoru finally caught up with the X-Sound 5 plus Naruto, they were nearing a border post that divided the lands of fire and wind. He then explained what they were going to do. Listen up, you guys. He began. We're stopping at Sunagakur for a quick rest, and then we'll go to my village. It's more of a city, but we'll manage. So I can see Gaara already? Naruto asked. Gaara and his other siblings are on their way here as we speak. Mamoru explained as they entered Sunagakur's gates. 2 sentries then came up to them. Halt. State your names and your purposes for entering Sunagakur, a sentry said. Mamoru Hibiki with a couple of missing nins from Otogakure and Konohagakure. Mamoru replied as they let them in. Where's the cage? Well, the previous cage was killed by Orochimaru, so there will be issues with the white-haired kid among your group, a second sentry replied who referred to Kimimaro. The new cage would arrive soon. Thank you, Mamoru said as they went inside the village. He looked around to see if there's any hotel for them to stay. Naruto then asked him something. Mamoru-san, why are we here? Aren't we going straight to your village? Naruto asked. We need to confirm to the cage, as well as the Tsuchikage that you have no more allegiance to Konoha. Mamoru explained. Things are going to be more chaotic as your ex-teammates are going to become ever more hell-bent on wiping out your existence. To tell you the truth, Konoha has been campaigning for the extermination of Jinchuriki from the Zodiac continent ever since the Sandaime Hokage took office. Wow, I'd like to know who are my parents, and what did they do? Naruto replied. Mamoru shook his head as he sighed. There will be another time for you to know your heritage. But I can tell you that you're descended from a very special person, the Hibiki replied. Just then, every person in the village bowed as the Sabaku siblings had come into the village. Naruto also bowed, but the red-headed boy just stopped him from bowing. No need to bow to me, Naruto Uzumaki, the red-headed sandbender said as his brother and sister nodded. I owe you my gratitude from that fight in the forest. All right, Gaara, Naruto replied as Tamari and Kankuro glared at the X Sound 5. What is it, Puppetman? Those guys are supposed to be dead. Kankuro yelled while pointing at Sakin, Tayuya and Kimimaro. I killed you two-headed bastard. Don't worry, we're no longer serving the hubby Tem. Sakin answered as Kankuro lessened his glare. We were left to rot when we almost died, the bastards. I see. Kankuro sighed. So, are you guys going to that secret village? Yes, Kankuro. We're going to my home. Mamoru replied as they were walking close to a hotel. We'll stay here for the night, and we'll go to Iwa. As for you 6 shinobi that are still wearing the Hitai Atesh, he said pointing to the X Sound 5 plus Naruto. I want you guys to make a scratch on the Hitai Atesh. Yes, Mamoru-san, Naruto said as he got out a kunai and made a line over the Hitai 8. Well, when can I get some training? You will get some training in my village, he replied as they neared the reception. Mamoru then approached the clerk. Hi, we'd like a room for 6. All right. The clerk replied as she looked at some sheets of paper. She then marked something on the paper. Here are your rooms. Thank you. We're just staying for the night, and we'll pay the fees tomorrow. Mamoru said as they left the reception area and into their rooms. Naruto went to his room and finally fell asleep. When morning finally dawned on the beautiful place of Suna, the X Sound 5 plus Naruto and Mamoru have left the village. Naruto and Gaara then shook hands before they left. For a few days, they have traveled far north into Earth Country. While Naruto was setting up camp with Jirobo and Sakin, he heard a rustle from one of the bushes. He then beckoned the other two and got into a battle stance. Damn it, it just had to interrupt us. Sakin growled while throwing a kunai on the bush. What surprised the 3 missing nin was that there were 3 Iwa Chunin that appeared along with their leader. What really amused them was that one of the Chunin was wearing armor and a makeup. Who are you, and what do you want? Sakin yelled as Jirobo cocked his fist. The armored girl got out a fan and blew him away. Naruto then held his arm to stop the angry X Sound nin. We're Iwa nin, as you noticed. But I'm not from this continent. The armored girl replied. By the way, my name is Suki, and I'm a Kyoshi warrior. Kyoshi warrior, Naruto said as Suki looked at the blonde with familiarity. You may have known me, but I know you, she said as Mamoru came up to the source of the commotion. You're directly descended from almost all avatars. You're descended from Avatar Mokushi, aren't you? I don't know what you are talking about, Naruto said as Mamoru placed his hand on his shoulder. What is it? I believe it's time I told you everything even though I barely knew you. He explained. Your parents were the Yondaime Hokage and a former Uzugakure Kunoichi. Their names were Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki, and they are descended from a very powerful people. Your father was descended from the very first avatar that created this world. Your mother was descended from the Rokudo Sennin, which brought forth the shinobi world. What's more is that you are a product of a secret experiment that was going to be successful. What am I then? Naruto asked. You're the ultimate ninja, and a member of a royal family. Mamoru answered. You have the most powerful bloodline, as well as 2 more chakra coils. However, I think that those abilities are unlocked the moment that Chidori has pierced your lung. Those abilities are unlocked whenever you're close to the point of dying. So when Sasuke nearly killed me, he unlocked my power. Naruto asked again. Mamoru nodded while explaining more. I knew your origins, and I also knew what happened to me. Mamoru said. My mother was an Uchiha that was exiled from Konoha for speaking out against the Root Anbu's policy of savage persecution of Jinchuriki that are residing in the village. My father was an Anbu captain that worked alongside the 7 swordsmen of the mist. Wait, you know Zabuza and Kisame? Kimimaro asked. The very same people. Back to Naruto's origins then. Mamoru replied. Since your heritage will be exposed to the world, there are external factors that will spiral out of control. For instance, the exposure of your parents' identity to the people of Konoha would have been the cause of a possible coup d'etat. For Iwa and Kumo, it would create an opportunity for them to offer you a spot in their shinobi ranks. For HU, it will be the return of the 1000th avatar, and possibly the Sendaime Hyukage. Hyugakure has existed for 5,000 years before the other shinobi villages were established. The shinobi present looked at the HU Junin with mixed curiosity. For a while, they didn't know how to react to this new information. Suddenly, there was a wave of cheering as Iwa shinobi walked towards the group. Mamoru was led by the lead Iwa Anbu as they entered Iwagakure. The Tsuchikage was present in his cage robes, beaming as they looked at the blonde that just arrived. I have been dreaming this day. The Tsuchikage said. I have dreamt that the son of Konoha's yellow flash would eventually defect from that wretched village. Well, we still have to go to Hyugakure. Mamoru said as the Tsuchikage placed a hand on his back. Don't worry about it, Hibiki-san. You and your group can go to HU, but there is a person that wants to meet the blonde boy. He said as he pointed his finger to Naruto. Naruto, can you follow that Anbu there? Mamoru said as Naruto followed the Anbu. He then beckoned Kidomaru to come closer to him. Can you follow him? All right, Kidomaru replied as he followed the blonde. When Naruto and the Iwa Anbu stopped at a clearing, there was a squad of samurai with a blue-haired woman accompanying them. What was familiar to Naruto was that she had that warm smile. She ran to the blonde and gave him a huge hug. Naruto, she said as Kidomaru looked confused. A minute later, Jirobo, Tayuya and Sakin came to see the commotion. They too were confused at how this actress had known their new friend. She then introduced herself. By the way, I'm Princess Koyuki Kazuhana of the Kazuhana clan. I'm just visiting on a diplomatic basis. No way, you're the Yukie Fujikas that starred in that Ika Ika Paradisu movie. Kidomaru said surprisingly. That's right, I'm also the actress that played the roles of some characters that you might know. Koyuki replied back as Tayuya grinned. Oh, by the way you guys. I have this neat trick to show you. She beckoned everyone to clear out as she made some movements. Suddenly, she waved her hands on the ground and water started to come out of it. She then bended the water until it evaporated into thin air. You can manipulate water? Jirobo asked after seeing that movement. Yes, Koyuki replied as Mamoru came up to the group. Hello, Hibiki-san. Koyuki Haim. Mamoru nodded as he bowed to her. I have to get my group now. So the next time you will meet us, it will be in Hyugakure. Hibiki-san, I'm going to HU no Kuni. So I may have to come with you. Koyuki replied as Tayuya asked her a question. Who's leading this big-ass nation? The redhead asked. A man called Emperor Onigoro the 17th, who's the member of the Yamato clan, the Yuki princess said as they were going to the gates. She then approached an Iwa nin that was posted in the guard post. We must be going now. Of course, Kazuhana-sama. The Iwa sentry nin replied as they left the village. Koyuki then went inside a carriage that she used when she had to travel to other nations. She beckoned for Naruto to join her as Mamoru looked at them. Koyuki Haim, don't you think that Naruto should be walking alongside us? Mamoru asked. There's room in the carriage for 8 people, so you all can go inside. Koyuki answered as she gestured for the group to climb inside. Tayuya was the first to go inside as the samurai that were guarding the princess started to trot on their horses. In Konohagakure, the villagers were muttering amongst themselves about what happened with that demon undesirable, after he was exiled and their beloved great leader Danzo ordered the hunter nin to kill him. They were shocked to find out that the root Anbu was sent back with a tail between their legs. A minute later, the Godime Hokage Tsunade from the Senju clan came to the balcony of the Hokage Tower. Unknown to the Godime, there will be a coup d'état that might happen in just a single secret revelate. People of Konohagakure, I am speaking to all of you regarding your disgusting behavior regarding Naruto Uzumaki, she said, causing the villagers to mutter in disapproval. I know that you may have mixed feelings, or rather a feeling of undivided hatred towards the boy. But I came here to tell you about his heritage. That demon has no heritage, yelled a villager. Him and those undesirables ought to be exterminated. For the preservation of our blue and pure world. Shut the hell up, Tsunade yelled, causing the crowd to be quiet. She then opened a scroll which contained Naruto's heritage and the last will. She then read the scroll. This is the final testament of Minato Namikaze. As I lived my final days of my rule as the Yondaime Hokage, there were a great amount of people that resented me taking the position. Their hatred for me reached its peak when I continued to allow the Jinchuriki from the Satsuna continent to come and live in Konoha. I faced the Kyuubi no Yoko after my wife Kushina gave birth to my son. I battled the great beast while my Bunshin wrote my will, and while my student's friend Mamoru Hibiki tried to help. As I couldn't stop the great beast, I went to grab the baby and sacrificed my life to seal the beast in my new son. Please see my son as a hero, not a demon. But I would have known that they wouldn't respect my wishes because of their engulfment of their utter hatred for anything not humanely. The end. Tsunade then placed away the scroll and said something that would trigger huge chains of events. You see, Naruto's parents were Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki. There was a silence, a long silence that lasted a couple of minutes. Then, a villager started screaming bloody murder. I knew it. I knew it. That filthy demon is descended from those traitors. Death to Namikaze. Hail Danzo-sama. Down with the Namikaze clan. The villagers had started a riot with a couple of Root Anbu grabbing a Jinchuriki from the Satsuna continent, and henging it into the Yondaime. Then, the villagers doused the gasoline on the said victim, and set him or her on fire. The Jinchuriki screamed with agony as the rest of the mob started to march to the Hokage Tower with torches thrown into the tower. Tsunade then called on the Anbu to restore order, but she was stopped by two Root Anbu nin. Tsunade, you're under arrest for treason against the village, a Root Anbu nin said as the slug Sanin kicked him in the shins. A moment later, there was a white-haired man that was fending off 10 Root Anbu nin as they rushed in to kill him. The Sanin are corrupted by the demon. Kill them. For the preservation of our blue and pure world. For many hours, the chaos had lingered around the village. Many innocent bystanders were killed in the crossfire, and there were some clans that were attacked. The Hyuga clan was among the clans that were attacked as Root Anbu nin broke in the Hyuga compound, and surrounded the Hyuga elders. Hiyashi saw what was happening and tried to stop them, but he was also surrounded by more Root Anbu nin. He then saw Danzo with a malicious smirk as a Root Anbu nin had executed a main branch Hyuga and a side branch Hyuga with a katana. What's the meaning of this? Hiyashi yelled. Hiyashi Hyugta, you're under arrest for treason against the village and for supporting the demon. Danzo said snidely as Hiyashi found himself cuffed by 3 Root Anbu nin. A minute later, there was a blur and the sounds of a fight. Then, the side branch Hyugas and the Hyuga heiress uncuffed their leader. To-san, what are we going to do? Hinata asked as her sister Hanabi was fighting off a Root Anbu nin. Hinata, Hanabi, Neji. Listen to me, Hiyashi said. We have to leave Konoha. It isn't safe for us here. Hiyashi-sama, this is our home. Neji said. I know, but it's not safe for us here anymore. The Hyuga head replied. We're going up north to the most desolate place in the world. You mean, that place? Neji said. Yes. It's the very same place where my old friend's ancestor was from, as well as the most beautiful place in the world. Hiyashi replied. There in that place you will find the answers to this recent chaos right now. All right, Neji said as he started to leave. But on his way into the gates, he saw his teammates standing guard. A tall spandex-clad Junin came up to him and placed his hand on the Hyuga's shoulders. This must be hard for all of us, with you and Tenten labeled as undesirables by those unyouthful council, the Junin said. Guy-sensei, I'm sorry that we have to leave, Neji said as he and Tenten started to go through the gates. Lee then started to place his hand on his shoulders as Tenten started to cry. Neji, Tenten, I'm so sorry that we're no longer a team, Lee said as he himself started to cry. I will make it up to you two by joining a group of people that will stop this mess. All right, Lee, Tenten said. Take care of Guy-sensei. Yosh. Lee and Guy sobbed as the two now proclaimed missing nin had left the village. Neji and Tenten headed northwest towards Tsuchi no Kuni while the rest of the Hyuga clan had finally left the village after a bloody battle in which 3 main branch Hyugas had died. Hiyashi then told his clan about their plan. My fellow Hyugas, we have been exiled by our own village as it falls under a corrupted regime that seeks to bring in chaos to the world, he said as the rest of the Hyuga clan listened. We are going to the place where the very first man had created the shinobi world. We will meet up with the son of our greatest friend the late Yondaime Hokage. Hiyashi-sama, we must get going, a side branch Hyuga said as they started to leave. Little did they realize that they would never live in the village that they would consider it their home. While the Hyuga clan had departed from Konoha, the carriage carrying the Yuki princess, the X-Sound 5, Naruto and the Hu Nin were nearing the border with Hu no Tikoku, which is a set of mountains that is filled with huge cannons aimed at any invading army. When the carriage reached the border post, they were halted by a soldier carrying a rifle at the post. Halt. Let's see your identification, the sentry said as they showed their IDs. Koyuki was the first one to show her ID, as another sentry came up to the first sentry. We were told by the emperor that we are to let in the Yuki princess. She's on a state visit, the second sentry said as the carriage started to go through the ragged paths in the snowy mountains. A minute later, there were a couple of machines that the group in the carriage had never seen before. The lead man in a machine with 3 guns on a turret hailed the carriage. We're your escorts for your trip, the tank man said as Koyuki and Mamoru peeked through the window. We are to escort you all to the city of Roku, where a train will get you to the capital. But I guess that you guys are bound for Hyugakure. Yes, sir, Mamoru said. We have to get back to the village as soon as possible. All right, the tank man said as Naruto asked Mamoru a question. Who are those guys that were in the border posts? Naruto asked. Those guys with no insignia are the regular soldiers in the Hu no Tikoku army. There are 3 elite units, Mamoru explained. The guys that are lightly armed, but carry 2 katanas are the Oigahama elite light infantry. The troops that are armed with a rifle and a katana are the Motomachi elite infantry, and the guys that are heavily armed and have those scary helmets are the Take Misagata elite Highlander, or the super infantry. There are tanks that substitute for cavalry, and cannons instead of catapults. Those guys must be the best, Kidomaru said as he looked at the armed soldiers passing by. They are. That's how Hyugakure is granted the most powerful nation in the world, Mamoru said as he sighed. Many Hyugakure ninja knew the origins of their village, as well as this nation. But I have to explain to you guys how the world was born. How did the world got created? Sakin asked. 50,000 years ago, the world was just born. You might have known about the legend of how Kami created the world. The Hu Nin explained as the carriage was nearing the first part of the mountain. 10,000 years ago, there was a man that was born during the first apocalypse. He was named Mokushi after the event, and he was the first Namikaze that was born into this world. While he was wandering around, he encountered a group of people that were starving and lonely. Mokushi then took in the starving group, and gave them comfort. What was surprising was that he didn't expect a reward for the deeds that he had done to those people. Little did he know was that the starving people were actually angels that tested his ability with people. For his excellence in the test, he was granted the ability to have these powers that later became known as the bending arts. That was also how he became the first avatar to be born into the world. Anyways, his integrity with the people that he saved became his companions as they set out to explore and conquer other lands around their settlement. Eventually, the Hu no Kuni was established. But 10,000 years ago, the clans that have settled in the lands that Mokushi had conquered were being oppressed by other clans that didn't have special powers. That was when the first shinobi came into being, with yet another Namikaze founding Hyugakur. So Hyugakur was founded almost the same thing as all other shinobi villages? Jirobo asked. Hyugakur was set up as the first shinobi village before other shinobi villages were established. Over those years, Hyugakur as well as Hu no Kuni has undergone an industrial revolution that rivaled that of the Fire Nation in the Mokushi continent. The reason why Mokushi's name is often used in many places is that every people respected the man that created their world. However, Hu no Tikoku never went to war with anyone, except the time when they had to defend their territory from outside forces. The First and Second Great Shinobi World War was a critical time for Hyugakur because their strength would have turned the tide of the war in favor of any side. Nevertheless, the wars have shaped Hyugakur for the better with many S-rank missions going into the village. Konoha has long sought Hu as a worthy opponent in which it will show its power, which is why Hu is currently allied with Iwa, Kiri and Kumo. Suna may have been allied with Konoha, but it longed to join Hu as well. Konoha was aware of this, and tried to place sanctions against its own ally in order for us to stop interfering in Suna's affairs. In the case of Oto, it's clear that Hu is now Oto's enemy with all of the Sound 5 defecting to us. But with Orochimaru in charge, we don't know if they would start a war with us. What does Hu do when dealing with the Akatsuki? Kidomaru asked. I mean, Orochimaru Tem used to serve them. Akatsuki is an unknown adversary, unless we convince its leader to stop hunting for the Biju and help us stop Konoha from realizing its deadly power. Mamoru replied. With the Uzumaki clan descending from the Rokudo Sennin, I'm sure Naruto has the Rinnegan. It is unlocked when that Chidori made contact with his chest. Yeah, because what is this freaky thing in my eye? Naruto asked while looking at a reflection. I was just thinking, and a minute later, there is this thing in my eye. That is the Rinnegan fully activated. Sakin observed. I may not know what that eye is, but I heard that it's the most powerful Kekkei Genkei that was ever created. Look, we're nearing the city of Roku. Mamoru said as the carriage was nearing a walled city filled with cannons on the walls and sentries on the towers. The carriage went through the mountains long enough for the city to be seen. As the guardsmen stopped escorting them, the carriage entered the city gates. Kidomaru and Kimimaro looked at the walls with interest. The walls are so impressive. Kimimaro said. All of the cities in Hu no Tikoku were based on the Earth Kingdom capital of Ba Sing Se, except the capital, which is heavily fortified. Mamoru said. We should go to the train station to take the train to the coastal city of Kokoho. From there, it's a long leap to Hyugakur. The carriage stopped at a train station, with the huge trains waiting for the passengers to get on. It was a common thing for the people of Hu to have trains that run on electricity, because it saved the fuel it can use for its tanks that will be used for war. Mamoru paid the ticket for 8 people, but only received 6 tickets. He asked why, and the answer came in the form of the passengers bowing to Naruto. The royal heir to the line of the Avatar Mokushi has returned, the ticket guy said as he bowed. Welcome back, Namikaze Dono. Namikaze-sama, it's great to see you again. Naruto was actually crying as every people that were going to the train bowed to him. He had never received this amount of respect before. Tayuya held his hand as she too started to cry. I never knew Tayuya was so soft. Jirobo whispered to Sakin as Kidomaru snickered. I normally thought that she had a hard-ass side. The group then boarded the train that was bound for Kokoho. Little did they knew that they were about to see two most unlikely visitors aboard the train. Neji and Tenten were extremely exhausted after their trip straight to the city of Roku. For 5 days, they traveled almost on the trees, stopping to eat and rest. After they reached the great city, they heard the rumor that a certain blonde had finally returned to the land of his ancestors' birth. I guess that this is what Hiyashi-sama was referring to. Neji said as he paid the tickets for the train. I was partially right when I say that Naruto wasn't destined to be Hokage. But I never knew that his destiny was tied to that of the creator of the world. Naruto must be one lucky person to have been born into the world. Yeah, but too bad he and Hinata won't be going out together. Tenten said as they looked for an empty compartment. I guess that she would be joining the resistance while Naruto would fall in love with someone else. Wait. The Hyuga said as he activated his Byakugan. He was shocked to have seen the person that he thought that he killed. Since when did he survive my Jiyuken? What are you talking about? Tenten asked. When we went to rescue the traitor Uchiha from those bastards, I had to face a 6-armed boy that can spit out silk that is infused with chakra. Neji explained as the train started to leave. I nearly died because he just happened to stumble on the secret of the Byakugan. Clever guy too, if he had fought Hinata-sama as well. The train had left the station as Neji looked at the window. Tenten also looked at the window as the weather started to get cold. I'm just going for a walk, the Hyuga said as he left the compartment. He walked around the hallway when he bumped into the person he never wanted to see again. What are you doing here when you should have been dead? He asked with a hint of venom in his voice. Well, the 6-armed boy said as he smirked. Kidomaru just happened to go to the restaurant when he bumped into this trash ninja. Funny I would see you Konoha trash here, except that your Hitai 8 is scratched across. I guess that you're now a missing nin. For your information, my clan was exiled from that hellhole. Neji snarled. We were chased out because of our association with the container of the Kyuubi. You mean the very same container that the people of HU have been bowing. Kisamaru explained. You even heard the ticket booth person about the return of the heir to the first avatar. I know about Naruto being destined for something even greater. Neji replied back as Tayuya and Koyuki walked to the commotion. And you must be the full-mouthed redhead that couldn't stop swearing. Guessed right, idiot. Tayuya said as Koyuki sighed in disappointment. Where's that pineapple-headed bastard that you were with when you chased after the Uchiha? He joined up the resistance. And for your information, we're no longer associated with that hellhole anymore, he replied back. I guess that you wanted to see Naruto, right? Koyuki asked as the Hyuga nodded. Tayuya and the Yuki princess led him into the compartment where Naruto was staying. He was surprised to see the blonde talking to a white-haired man with 2 red dots on his forehead. He knocked on the compartment and a black-haired Hu Junin opened the door. What is it that you want? Mamoru asked. I want to see Naruto. Neji said. Naruto glanced at him as Tayuya sat back down in her seat. I have to tell him something. We have been suspecting for some time now that your clan would eventually be banished. It would also be true to the other clans that supported the late Yondaime. Mamoru answered. You should bring in your leader to Hyukage Tower when we reach there. I have to talk to Hiyashi-sama myself about what will happen. As for your defection, I will see what can I do and maybe I'll commission you along with the rest of these missing nin to HU shinobi ranks as chunin. But I have to give you guys a test to prove my theory right. By the way, what is your name? Neji asked. Sorry about that. My name is Mamoru Uchiha Kagaya Hibiki, and I'm from the Uchiha, Kagaya and Hibiki clans. I have the Sharingan, as well as the Shikatsumyaku. Mamoru said. So you managed to survive the Uchiha massacre? The Hyuga asked. I was in Kiri when it happened. The Hu Junin said as the train zoomed by a wheat field. Anyways, is your clan that were exiled, or there were other people that were also banished? My friend Tenten is here on this train. he said. I'll go get her. Naruto, I have to talk to you in private. All right, Neji. Naruto replied as he left the compartment. The two boys then walked to the compartment where he and Tenten were staying. What is it, Neji? Naruto, since we're all exiled, there will be chaos in the world. I have long known that Hinata-sama has longed to feel your love as she admired you for what you have done. But since you're joining Hyugakure's shinobi ranks and Hinata-sama will join the resistance, our clan felt that the possible union between the Hyuga and the Namikaze will be non-existent. Neji explained. The Uchiha may try to defect again to Oto, but this time no one will be able to stop him. Why can't we stop him? Naruto asked. Because Sasuke was so focused on achieving unlimited power that he was willing to risk everything, and that anyone that stood in his way will be eliminated. Also, Sakura has now been incensed by your failure to bring him back unharmed that she started to join in the people that seek the extermination of the Jinchuriki population that resided in Konoha. She has joined Root from what I heard, and is influenced by Danzo's ideologies. The Haruno clan is the only clan that remained loyal to the evil regime as the rest of Konoha was being purged. I fear that a civil war may come upon Konoha. We can't do anything about it, since we're technically banished. I mean, how are we going to start our new lives in the new village? Naruto asked. That is for you to decide, he replied. In Konoha, the council was in the middle of a heated argument. Now that the Hyuga clan has been banished, the Nara, Yamanaka and Akamichi clans have tried hard to keep up with the policy of peace. But with the looming war clouds gathering upon the village, it will be a few years before those war clouds are going to clear away. What the hell are we going to do not now that Hiashi is gone? Inoichi asked angrily. You murderous thugs, Shuza Akamike yelled while pointing a finger at Danzo. You set this up, didn't you? Keep your mouth shut, Akamichi. Homura yelled back. I suggest that you all keep quiet. Danzo said as the council was quiet. For too long did those wretched policies of the cowardly Shadaime have been placed regarding those ingrates encroaching our peaceful village. Well, this ends here tonight. Inoichi banged his fist on the table. Well, we don't have a Hokage thanks to you old prune. All of the Sannin are gone now with one of them already an enemy and the other two labeled as an undesirable. They have aided that filthy demon when it was born. Koharu said, I agree that we should have a new Hokage. But who it will be? I choose Danzo for the job. Homura replied as the war hawk smiled. All in favor? Koharu asked as 6 hands were raised. And all against? The Yamanaka, Nara, Akamichi, Aburame, Sarutobi, and the Inuzuka clan raised their hands. Well, this just played into our hands. Danzo said. Unfortunately, your votes are nullified because we already have labeled you all as undesirables. So from this point on, I'm the Rokudaime Hokage. You can't do that, Shikaku Nara shouted. This means war, Shuza yelled as the council fell silent. Danzo then grinned maliciously. Well, you may have this war. But when I win this war, I'll execute you all. Danzo threatened the Akamichi as the anti-fascist clans had left the council office. The train that was bound for the port of Kokoho was zooming through the mountains. Naruto was looking down to the ground after he found out about what happened when he was exiled. We had to get out of Konoha when the one-armed bastard sent his men after us. If it wasn't for Mamoru-san, we would have been dead. Naruto said. Well, that can't be helped. Tenten said as she looked at the window. I heard that other clans are going to be exiled as well. Since they supported the Shadaime's policies, they're considered enemies of the village. Almost 98% of the population of the village supports the evil regime, so a civil war like this would end shortly. However, I was wondering what would happen if the conflict had spread to the rest of Hai no Kuni. Neji said as Mamoru came up to them. What is it? We're getting close to Kokoho, so get your gear ready, since it's gonna be a long trip from Kokoho to Hyugakure, he said. Your clan will reach Hyugakure from the capital. We passed the city of Yangshan, didn't we? Tenten asked. The city of Yangshan is also an important city, since it holds the road to the rest of the industrial towns and cities. Mamoru explained as the train entered the port city of Kokoho. The group then went to get their gear from the compartment and waited until the train stopped at the station. They got off the train as soon as it started to unload its passengers. Mamoru then led the expanded group out of the station and started to run towards the village. Mamoru was leading the missing nins towards Hyugakur when he spotted two Chunin that were standing guard in the snowy forest. One of them had a weird keke genke on his eyes while the Kunoichi had a very long black hair and a well-built body. They seemed to know Mamoru because they came up to him. Mamoru-sensei, who are these newcomers? The Kunoichi asked. Sorry about that, Amaya. Mamoru said as the missing nins came closer. Naruto was carrying Koyuki on his back while Tayuya and Jirobo were escorting them. This is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, and the other 7 are Neji Hyuga, his friend Tenten, the X-Sound 5. He pointed out to each individual clockwise. I'm Amaya Musashi, Amaya said as she introduced herself. Then she pointed the boy with the weird keke genke. That red-eyed jet black-haired guy is Shinosuke Asuka. For his appearance, think of Shin Asuka from GSD. Hello, you guys, he said as the missing nins waved. We're in the Chunin rank, cause we passed the Chunin exams that were held 6 months before the one held in Konoha. All right, Shinosuke, Mamoru replied. I may have found you guys a replacement because your other teammate has already left the village. Oh yeah, he didn't stay because he was just a temporary teammate. Amaya explained. This guy had a burn in his face. I swear to Kami that he must have gotten hurt in a fight. That guy just happened to be from the Mokushi continent, same as that Kyoshi warrior that is part of Iwa. Shinosuke said. It's not every day that we have the Prince Zuko of the Fire Nation as part of our team. Oh yeah, we met the Kyoshi warrior back in Iwa. Mamoru replied as Naruto looked at the two teammates. Amaya noticed his eyes and blushed. I already have a girlfriend. Shinosuke said. Her name was Kinako Takahashi, and she is also Chunin in Matsuhito Sensei's team. Yeah, and I haven't gotten a boyfriend yet. Amaya sighed in disappointment. She looked at Naruto with interest. Maybe that guy would be perfect. Naruto hasn't even got a clue about what to do when a girl likes him. Neji said as Shinosuke snickered. Hinata-sama had a huge crush on him, and he didn't even notice. Seriously, you must be the biggest idiot that ever lived. Shinosuke sighed as they were nearing the village. The missing nins were awed by the design of the defenses of the village, which consists of 3 walls. Hyugakur is designed by the same people that designed the Earth Kingdom capital of Ba Sing Se. It has an outer, middle and inner rings. Amaya said. Besides the 4 soldiers that you guys saw in the rest of Hu no Tikoku, there are benders in the army as well. I guess that you saw Koyuki Itoko's waterbending moves. I showed them how it's done. Koyuki said as Shinosuke continued to talk. Well, don't be so scary about it. Amaya said as Naruto didn't get what she was saying. What do you mean by not being scary? Naruto asked. Koyuki Itoko is a star prodigy in the Kazahana clan, as I am also a star prodigy in the Musashi clan. Everyone that became a ninja in HU is a star prodigy in their clans. We recently accepted shinobi with a keke genke from Kurigakur after the keke genke purge, she explained as they entered the village. Our Hyukage is the Kyuyakukyujukyudaime Hyukage. That means our next Hyukage will be the Sendaime Hyukage. I understand the part about Hyugakur existing for almost 10,000 years. Sakin said. But how could the village go through this stuff when the rest of the villages have suffered? During the 3 Shinobi World Wars, HU played a vital role in taking in refugees that were uprooted from their homes. Shinosuke said as they walked through the village. Everyone that saw Naruto bowed to him, even the shinobi that were like Root. We have an elite Anbu called Frost. They were based on the Dai Li, but with a killer instinct. They were like Root, but unlike those bastards, Frost Anbu promotes the solidarity between humans, demons and Jinchuriki. Amaya replied. However, the demons were hesitant to settle in this village because of the chaos that they could bring. That's great, Tuyuya said as they continued their path towards the Hyukage Tower, which is a walled fortress with volley guns mounted on the turret. I guess that this village is obsessed with fortifications. Don't forget, Hyugakur and the rest of the country was once part of the Water Tribe. Mamoru answered as they arrived at the Hyukage Tower. The sentries bowed to the group as Naruto was looking around the palace hallways that they entered. He then came up to the two shinobi that were assistants of the Hyukage. We're here to see the Hyukage. Right away, sir. The shinobi said as they entered the room. The Kyuyaku-Kyujukyudaime Hyukage was slaving away in the paperwork when he saw Mamoru arriving with Naruto in tow. The old Hyukage gasped as he saw the blonde and gave him a bone-crushing hug. Naruto-sama. The Hyukage said as he hugged him. Naruto hugged him back as Mamoru tapped on his shoulder. Well, I thank you for bringing me back the heir to the Avatar royal bloodline. It wasn't a problem. Konoha knew what it was doing when he returned with the Uchiha in tow. Mamoru said. He then introduced the new people to him. These are missing nins from Oto and Konoha. Well, it doesn't hurt to add more shinobi to our ranks. By the way, my name's Tatsuzo Yamato of the Yamato no Tengoku, the Hyukage said as he looked for a registration form for the new ninjas to fill out. The Hyukage handed out the forms to each individual as Naruto took one as well. After you all register, I would have to get you all assessed for your proper rank. All right, Neji replied as he filled out the form. After they filled the form, they handed it to Tatsuzo as he looked at the form that they wrote on. You 8 are not yet qualified as HU ninjas, but you guys are granted the citizenship of Hyugakur no Datoshi. All I have to do is to give you guys the forms for applying for the citizenship of HU no Tikoku, he said as an aide gave Naruto and his friends the envelope that contained the papers that they need to fill in order to be a certified HU no Tikoku citizen. Send it to the capital of Mokushi by mail. It'll take you too long by walk, and the trains may not take the mail. Okay, but when they are going to be inducted to Hyu's shinobi ranks, I'll take Naruto in since my team needs a replacement. Seeing as my third student became Kia during the last mission, Mamoru explained, I'll also have to teach them how to bend as well. You'll go do that. All right, why don't we have the assessment tomorrow? Then, I'll get you to train the new ninjas for 2 months, one of them being the month needed to learn how to bend. They'll also need to build more chakra reserves for using cage bunshin, because they will need to learn it to speed up the learning process. Tatsuzo explained, I have a contact in Ba Sing Se that would like Naruto and his friends to be included in the Daili. You mean Long Feng? He would have to wait, seeing as Naruto hasn't even known what the art of bending is. Mamoru said as Naruto stood around. He then gestured for him to leave along with his friends. Or I may have to do that jutsu. You mean the jutsu that involves slowing time for the purpose of training them for what it seems to be 3 years. You'll have to do that, because bending takes a long time, a very long time to master. They'll need to learn it before the upcoming wars that will plague our city as well as our country. Tatsuzo said, Naruto needs to master all elements, because he's poised to be the next avatar after Avatar Aang, who by the way we don't know where he is. As for his friends, they can master all elements as well. They need to master all of them, because they are going to be a part of Hyu's family from now on. Time is short, we may have a war that will be on the rise with the situation in Konoha. I fear that the regime there would undergo an ideological transition for the worst. Danzo's new victory party would influence the southern parts of Hai no Kuni. Plus we have a situation in Kazan no Kuni with those fascists that are targeting Mizu no Kuni. I don't know whether the Earth Kingdom can survive the war against the Fire Nation with limited help. Even the men form the Southern Water Tribe may not be of much of a help. We have to do what we can. Naruto's also poised to become the Sendaime Hyukage. Mamoru replied. All right, Mamoru. We'll discuss more tomorrow after that assessment test. Tatsuzo said as Mamoru left the office. In Konoha, there were fears of a civil war that could break out within a minute or an hour. The villagers have thrown their lots with Danzo's faction, which adopted the manji for the symbol. For some reason, the clans that were labeled undesirable started to gear their people for war. With the Hyuga clan banished as well as two of the legendary Sannin on the run, the war would be a very difficult one for the heroes that resisted the tyrant's Iron Fist regime. Danzo was standing on the balcony as he was giving a speech. As we embark on a new journey towards a new world order, we will make sure those traitors are hunted down and killed for aiding the filthy demon that should have been killed. Danzo thundered as the crowd was chanting, "Victory," and raising their hands that would reach the sky. "Victory! Victory! We will pursue those traitors until the ends of the earth and slaughter them." Danzo yelled as more people cheered in utter savagery. "We will show them that demons have no place on this new order, and traitors are also no longer welcome." Danzo-sama sure gives a very inspiring speech, doesn't he? Homura asked Kaharu while listening to the speech. "He sure does. It's about time we had a Hokage that can rule effectively. Sarutobi was too soft, that traitor from the Namikaze clan was too soft, heck even Tsunade was too soft towards that demon." Kaharu replied. "Danzo-sama will place the manji on top of the world by the time we have wiped out those demon ingrates from the world." Homura replied back. "We are doing this for the preservation of our blue and pure world." Meanwhile, Kakashi Hatake was not a happy camper. After finding out that the Uchiha had escaped once again in search of power, Naruto being banished and marked for life, and Sakura joining the group that opposed the Sandame's policies, he was blaming himself for what he couldn't do in the past. His friends were upset, but Maida Guy of all the people was saddened that two of his students were also marked for life, seeing as Neji's clan was banished for speaking out against Danzo, and the Inoshika Cho trio also were talking about joining the Hyuga clan in HU. Kurenai Yuahi was anxious to meet the person that single-handedly defeated Tenryuta Anbu Shinobi, but couldn't figure out where he would be, and Asuma Sarutobi was cursing Danzo for denouncing his father's policies. They were camped in the forest outside the border with Kusa, talking about the future. "For some reason, I felt attracted to this unknown person," Kurenai said as she looked at the sky, which was darkening as night began to fall. "Kakashi, do you know who the person that single-handedly defeated Tenryuta Anbu Shinobi?" "Well, from what I heard, he uses bones to battle, so he's a Kagaya. But he was reported to have the Sharingan, so he's part Uchiha. But I never heard of manipulating elements without hand signs." Kakashi replied. "I knew that guy," Guy said as they turned their heads towards him. "He participated in the Third Shinobi World War as a part of a secret HU battalion that aided Iwa. He was reported to have even survived the late Yondaime Hokage's Hiraishin no Jutsu. But Minato didn't kill him for some reason." "You mean, Sensei's opponent in the last war was the very same man that was once part of Kiri's shinobi ranks?" Kakashi said. "The very same. Mamoru Uchiha Kagaya Hibiki was the most feared shinobi in the entire shinobi world. I wouldn't say the most youthful, because he fights like his mirror image Itachi. In a way, he's like Itachi with the mix of the last Kagaya." Guy said. "I saw him when we were scouting for enemy reinforcements. I swear that he's also the most honorable man that I ever met. He didn't kill me when I was outnumbered by the Iwa Nin. He ordered the Iwa Nin not to torture me or anything because he followed the code of Bushido." Kurenai said. Mamoru was also known for his skill in elemental whips. "No surprise there," Asuma said. "Mamoru was deadly at the same time. He even learned and modified the Yondaime's Hiraishin. Of course, the Kaji Hiraishin leaves a burning trail whenever he goes to kill many shinobi. It also seems that he's also on a flee on-site list for us, given that he can wipe out the same number of shinobi as Minato himself. The Mizu Hiraishin works only in the water, and the K's Hiraishin works whenever Mamoru gathers more chakra to wipe out a fortress. Perhaps the most deadly jutsu that he's created is the Cage Harishin. In the shadows, he can kill anyone without making a sound. Guy explained. So Mamoru's like me, a prodigy. Kakashi said. Yep. And a more worthy opponent too. Guy replied. I have to go to HU to see him. I haven't thanked him properly, and lately I've been dreaming about him as well. Kurenai said. Well, that's okay for me. Asuma said. I prefer going to go chase after strippers anyways. Well, Asuma, I prefer reading my favorite books. Kakashi replied. Kurenai glared at the copy nin at the mention of a book. You know I detest those smut. Kurenai bluntly said. And Guy, can you at least give up the jumpsuit? You don't get enough ladies with that thing. Kurenai, it keeps my flames of youth burning whenever I wear it with pride. Guy said. We'd better get to sleep for tomorrow. Asuma said as they tucked into sleep. We may have to go to HU tomorrow. All right, Kurenai replied as she fell asleep. The morning came nicely for the people of Hyugakur. After moving into Mokushi's old home last night, I swear to Kami that the house looks so ancient. Naruto said when he looked inside the house. Naruto and his new friends plus Neji and Tenten settled in their new home. What's for breakfast? Naruto asked Kimimaro, who happened to go first to the kitchen. Well, there won't be any ramen for sure. Kimimaro replied, causing the blonde to go pale. You need to eat something else besides ramen. I guess you're right, Kimimaro. Naruto said as he got out a couple of eggs to cook for the group. While breakfast was being made, Tayuya and Jirobo were looking around the house, followed by an irate Sakin. Geez, you two-headed freak. Why did you drag yourself along with us when we told you that you don't have to? Tayuya asked angrily. Kidomaru woke me up, not you two. Sakin grumbled as Kidomaru joined the group. Spidey, what the bleep is wrong with you? You woke Mr. Siamese twins here, and Fatass here is just plain sleepy. The redhead asked angrily. Geez, Tayuya, you should watch your mouth. Jirobo said as there was a knock on the door. Kidomaru opened it, and Mamoru was standing on the door. I guess that you're here for our test. Kidomaru said. Right you are. Plus, I happen to have bumped into this young lady here. Mamoru said as a black-haired girl with a scratched Hittite came into the house. Kidomaru said as he hugged her. What happened? After Orochimaru Tem left us to rot, this guy was happy to see me. Kin said as Tayuya hugged her. I heard that the blonde boy is here. Yep. Naruto was the one that saved us, with a little help from Kimimaro. Jirobo replied. That's settled, we can start on the assessment. Mamoru said. If I want to form a 3-man cell, I have to bring out an extra girl seeing as you guys also need more of them for your team. Mamoru replied. Naruto, where is Naruto? Making breakfast with Kimimaro, and complaining because he won't get to eat ramen for breakfast. Neji said as he and Tenten appeared in the doorway. All he eats is ramen, no wonder why he's obsessed with it. Well, let's get started after eating breakfast. Mamoru said as he came into the house and grabbed an egg and a potato to go on his plate. After cleaning up and finishing breakfast, Mamoru had invited Tatsuzo to Mokushi's house to assess the skills that the new ninjas are going to demonstrate. Tenten was the first person up to be tested as she got out 3 kunai. She threw them in a precise movement, and all the targets were hit perfectly. Neji demonstrated the Kaden as well as the Jiyuken. The Hyuga clan fighting style would fit in the category of airbending. Mamoru told Tatsuzo. You're right, it seems like that Hyugas were meant to be masters of air. Tatsuzo replied. Naruto demonstrated by using his cage bunshins, as well as using the Rasengan on a tree. Kimimaro used the Shikatsumyaku to cut the leaves into 3 pieces. Tayuya summoned the Doki to do a dance, while Kidomaru showed his spider techniques. Sakin and Ukin have summoned Rashomon, while Jirobe had surprisingly lifted the entire tree in the backyard. After Mamoru was done assessing the missing nins, he also received the results from the Chunin exam when Tatsuzo gave him more papers to work on. Well, Seeing as all of you have demonstrated your skills, congratulations. I hereby commission all of you to Hyugakure's shinobi ranks as Chunin. Mamoru said as he got out a white camouflage Chunin vest that is reserved for Chunin. We have 3 months until the Junin exams, so for the entire 3-month period, I'm going to train you all up in the arts of elemental bending as well as learning more jutsus. Bending is the manipulation of water, earth, fire and air, Mamoru-sensei. Naruto asked. Just then, Shinosuke and Amaya entered the compound accompanied by a butler. Yes, Naruto. As for the 3-man teams, I'm going to be the sensei of all the teams because I have to train you all up as I said earlier. He said. Kidomaru and Sakin will be one team. Naruto, you will be with Amaya and Shinosuke. Jirobo, Tayuya and Kimimaro will be another team. As for Neji and Tenten, I have found a perfect replacement for you two. Who is it? Neji asked. He is a prodigy of the Kikuchi clan. His name is Kazu Kikuchi, and he can manipulate all elements as well. His special ability is elemental barriers. Mamoru said as a boy with a blue hair and green eyes had appeared beside Tatsuzo. Think Athrun Zala. Anything else? Tatsuzo asked. Yeah, he should be arriving at the moment. Mamoru muttered as a man in his 40s with a partial bald hair and a green outfit entered the compound, accompanied by men in a hat and an arrow on the top. Mamoru introduced the newcomers to the now commissioned HU shinobi. This is Long Feng of the Dai Li. Well, I never thought I'd be meeting the descendant of the avatar that created the Dai Li. Long Feng said as he bowed to Naruto. He then looked at the rest of the group. Mamoru, if you can train them in the art of earthbending, they can be a vital asset to the Dai Li. But I don't need emotional people in it. Long Feng-sama, I won't let you down. I will conceal or kill my emotions to get any job done. Naruto said. Naruto, I did say that I don't need emotional people, but I also don't want you to kill your own emotions. Long Feng replied as one of the Dai Li handed the group an important piece of paper. This paper will tell the tour guide when you all reach Ba Sing Se about visiting me. Her name is Judy, and she'll help you guys around. I hope to be working with you all someday. Especially you, Naruto. But for security's sake, you should get a better name. How about Ming Wen? Naruto said. Done. As of this day, you are Zhao Ming Wen. Long Feng said to Naruto as he and the Dai Li had left. Mamoru smiled at the new crew that he had rescued. This is going to be a long day that will result in a stronger group. Well, this chapter is a setup for the story arc of Training Regimen arc, as well as the Konoha Civil War. As for the next chapters, the events that will take place will be based on historical events from Harry Turtledove's alternate history that involves an independent Confederate States of America. Mamoru was looking at the new HU ninjas that recently joined its ranks, plus his 2 students from when they were just genin. Even the resurrected bell user Kunoichi managed to impress the star prodigy Junin by using genjutsu on the bells. The said Junin was explaining in detail about the upcoming training that will be done over the next 3 to 4 months. Listen up, you guys, he said as Naruto paid attention for once. The training that will be conducted is unlike any training that you guys have done before. The art of bending will be taught by the original benders, which are animals. We are simply going to practice the new moves as we go along in this training. Now, before we start training, I'd like to ask you all a question. What is the question? Shinosuke asked. Why do you seek power? Mamoru asked, causing great confusion in the ranks. Naruto was the first one to answer. I seek power so that everyone would start treating me with respect. Naruto replied. I want to be able to create my own destiny. Neji answered. I want to protect someone close to me. Tenten said. The X-Sound 5 also answered the same question, seeing as they never protected anyone before. I have to protect the innocent people that worked hard to create this world. Kin said. I want power to protect my comrades. Amaya said. Mamoru was nodding at every answer that they said. Your answers are valid, but what purpose do they serve? he asked. The shinobi in ranks were puzzled by the question. In order to have the ability to seek power, you must establish the purpose of your goal. That goal would judge your personality and your life itself as you grow. For example, Sasuke Uchiha grew up in the shadows of his older brother. When he killed his own clan, he entrusted his younger brother of killing him in return. This is why his characteristics are that of an avenger. Even you cannot bring him back from the darkness, Naruto. For his choice of seeking power would eventually bring in his inner self. So we have to be stronger to protect anything in this world. Naruto asked. Yes, especially you, Naruto. You're the heir to the line of avatars, and you're also destined to be the Sendaime Hyukage. Destiny is a funny thing. Its favorite weapon is irony. Mamoru mused. Neji was puzzled at what he said. I thought that we're to follow the path that fate and destiny has laid for us. Neji said. You're partially right. However, many of those paths that fate and destiny would bring would often result in an outcome that is the opposite of what you have intended to expect, he replied back. Anyways, our training will start with finding out your elemental affinity. He grabbed a few sheets of paper and handed it out to them. Mamoru-sensei, how are we going to find out what is our elemental affinity? Amaya asked while looking at the paper. You place your chakra on the paper, and if it splits, it's air. It burns, and it's fire. It gets wet, and it is water. Turn to dust, and it is earth. If it crumples, it's lightning. It freezes, and it's ice. If it does more than one thing, then you've got more than one elemental affinity. Mamoru answered as Naruto placed his chakra on the paper. In an instant, the paper has split up, burned, got soaked, turned to dust, crumpled and froze. The Hu Junin nodded at the result. Just as expected from the Avatar descendant, you are affiliated with all elements. Amaya and Shinosuke also had their papers gone through the same fate as Naruto's paper. But Kimimara's paper froze, split, turned to dust, burned and soaked. Tayuya's paper split, turned to dust, burned, and soaked. Jirobo's paper had gone the same result, as was Kitamaru's paper, and Sakin's paper. Neji's paper had split, while Tenten's paper had turned to dust. Kin has her paper soaked and frozen. Well, that is surprising. But for those of you that only had one elemental affinity, it's okay. You're still going to learn more elements, but you're just going to stick with your elemental affinity. Mamoru responded. The Hu Chunin squads then started to leave the village or city, or whatever you call it. They traveled to Kokoho where they purchased tickets for a train ride to the major port of Karuk. The first bending element that you guys will learn is waterbending. The Northern Water Tribe would offer the best place to go look for a koi fish or an elephant whale, he explained as they boarded the train. Don't we go to the air temples first? Amaya asked while Naruto was puzzled. Ever since the genocide of the air nomads, some of them had settled in the city of Yangchun, which is known for its game preserves for sky bisons. Airbending will be the last lesson to learn. Mamoru replied back. We will also go to the Cave of Two Lovers to go look for badger moles for your earthbending lesson, and finally, you guys will learn firebending from the Sun Warriors. The train sped off after it departed from Kokoho. Naruto and Neji were seated with Tayuya and Tenten in one compartment, talking about the future of their former home. How is Konoha going to survive with a civil war on its hands? Tenten asked. Our families are going to be killed in crossfire. You're right, Tenten. Many people are going to be killed in this war, and it might attract some unwanted attention from its enemies, such as Iwa and Kumo. Neji replied as Amaya, Shinosuke, Kitamaru and Kin had entered the compartment. What is it that you guys want? Well, we might take a little walk when we stop at the nearest town close to the border with the Takashima province. Amaya said as Shinosuke sat down on the seat. We could have a chance to go to Omashu on the way to the Cave of Two Lovers. That place is great, but Ba Sing Se is the better city to live in. Assuming the Dai Li isn't on your ass all the time, Shinosuke said. I wonder what happened to Ero Sennin and Tsunade Obaa-chan. Naruto asked while looking at the window. Tsunade-sama and Jiraiya-sama might have gone to Suna for all we know, but seeing as they are most likely going to look for you, I'd say that they must be close to Hu no Tikoku. Amaya replied. I'd say what about any Konoha shinobi that aren't supporting the bastard thugs that were trying to kill us? Kidomaru asked. They are going to look for help in either Suna or Kiri. Shinosuke answered. He then looked at the hallway to see Mamoru coming to them. What is it, Mamoru-sensei? Well, we might have company as soon as we reach Karuk. It seems to me that Kakashi Hatake and his other friends are going to look for you, Naruto. Mamoru said as the blonde gazed down on the floor. Don't worry about it, Naruto. They can't capture you from us. It's just that I don't know if I want to see them again. Naruto said. Kakashi-sensei was my first sensei that ever taught me before Ero Sennin and you, Mamoru-sensei. I see. In that case, I'll go talk to them. Mamoru replied as the train had made an alternating route. What the hell? This train will make a detour towards Mokushi for the purpose of His Divine Majesty meeting the heir of the great late Avatar Mokushi, the announcer said as Naruto gasped. It seems to me that Koyuki Haim also left Hyugakur after we settled in and went by train as well. She should be in the city. Mamoru said. Little did they know that a familiar set of faces are there to see our favorite blonde. City of Roku. Kakashi and his friends were hightailing it towards the frontier with Hu no Tikoku. They were traveling through Tsuchi no Kuni before stopping at the border. They arrived at the city of Roku, and caught the train that will take them to the capital to search for Naruto. I didn't realize that Hu no Tikoku is even more advanced than Yuki no Kuni. Kakashi said as he looked at the nearby airport. The jet aircraft that were displayed on the airfield was astounding as the trains that were built. Comparing this place to Hai no Kuni, I'd say Hu no Tikoku is the richest. Asuma said as Guy ran down the hallway in the train. What is it, Guy? Well, I asked the person in charge of this ride about the route that we're going. It seems that we're going to the capital of Mokushi to look for Naruto. The entire train department has told any operator that has him on board to alter its route towards the capital. Guy explained. The Yusai no Tenu will play the host to Naruto's appearance. The train that Kakashi and his friends are riding on sped towards the capital with one thought in mind, Naruto. As the train sped faster, Kurenai was looking at the window when Kakashi and Asuma looked at the hallway to see an unfamiliar Konoha nin with a weird Hittite and an unfamiliar face. What was surprising, however, was that he yelled out, Kakashi-senpai. To the said copy nin. Tenzo, what brings you here? Kakashi asked the newcomer. Kakashi-senpai, Konoha is in a civil war right now, the newcomer said. By the way, Tsunade-sama assigned me to be a part of the resistance and I am to be called Yamato. Yes, but there is a Yamato clan in Hyugakur. The head of the Yamato clan is the current Hyukage. Kakashi said as Guy was wandering around the train. Guy, what is it now? We're getting close to the capital, so we have to get our gear and head for the Yusai no Tenu to wait for Naruto. Guy replied as Kurenai started to get out of the compartment. He then turned to Yamato. What do you mean, it has already started? Root Anbu has secured key points in the village, except for the Hokage Tower and the Hokage Mansion, which is held by our faction. Tsunade-sama is in charge of the resistance while she is in exile, and Jiraiya-sama is in charge of intel in the area. Yamato explained. We'd better get to the capital as fast as we can, so we can tell any Hu nin to take caution. Asuma said as the train had entered the capital. Konohagakure no Sato. In Konoha, the streets were chaotic. The atmosphere was anything unlike any war that has been fought. Konoha shinobi fought each other to death as the resistance kept on fighting with Root Anbu mercilessly slaughtering any innocent civilians that were suspected of sympathizing with that filthy demon. Screams were heard from even in Iowa, where the population grew tense about the situation in their enemy's domain. The Inoshika Cho trio was having a great amount of trouble fighting off squad after squad of Root Anbu shinobi, who were given orders to take no prisoners. In the council chambers, Danzo, Homura and Kaharu were in the middle of a discussion about the situation right now. Our affairs have been taken into account in other villages as we speak. Homura said as there were yells that were being made from outside. Suna would be hesitant about what is going on in our domain, seeing as they had a demon problem there as well. Only difference is that those heroes were jailed for their views. Danzo said as a Root Anbu commander entered the chamber, saluting with an arm pointing up in the sky. Danzo-sama, there has been a sighting of Kiri shinobi over the village walls, the Root Anbu commander reported. Sightings on that filthy demon have been confirmed. It was sighted in the Hu no Tikoku capital of Mokushi. Kuso. If we only killed that miserable ingrate when we had a chance, Hu wouldn't even be thinking about messing with us. Danzo grumbled. I'm afraid there's more. The Hyuga clan has been spotted in the western city of Yangshan, and Odo has deployed its forces at the border with Hai no Kuni, the commander replied. Well, Orochimaru certainly isn't wasting any time, isn't he? Kaharu said as Homura sighed. Thank you very much, Taisho. Victory. Homura said as he saluted the commander with a fascist salute. In the streets, fighting still continued with Root Anbu executing surrendering shinobi. One squad of Root Anbu was busy burning down a community of Jinchurikis. Take this, you ingrates. For the preservation of our blue and pure world. Screams were heard from the victims that fell to the deadly onslaught of Root. One commander of the squad threw up at the sight of the corpses. I can't take this anymore, he said as he got out a sword and impaled himself with it. In other villages, there were emergency meetings that were happening in an instant. News of the civil war had spread faster than wildfire, and there's some countries that were beginning to take the situation seriously. Iwagakure Council Chambers. There were council members that were listening to the council leader's speech. She was dead serious about what's happening. Konoha's troubles had begun with the exile of one Naruto Uzumaki, son of the late Yellow Flash who recently defected to Hyugakure. The civil war that would spread to southern parts of Hai no Kuni has already begun as well, with rebel samurai slaughtering many innocent people who were simply being accused of having a demon inside them, the Iwa councilwoman announced. It also seems that Odo was ready to deploy its forces to support the evil regime of Danzo the War Hawk, and Hu is ready to support the anti-fascist faction that is currently headed by one of the legendary Sannin, Tsunade-sama. There were murmurs after the speech, with one council member speaking for the councilwoman that gave the speech. I also have something to say about this issue, the second council member said as the murmurs died down. I have recently received news from Taki, Kusa and AIM about the civil war, and they expressed their beliefs as anything like the last civil war back in Omegakure, when the mysterious person calling himself Pain has single-handedly killed Hanzo. Suna, Kiri and Kumo also expressed their shock and called for a negotiation between two warring factions. Kiri especially didn't want to see yet another bloodshed after the purge of the Kekkei Genkei inherited clans, which resulted in the majority of them moving to Hyugakure. The mysterious organization Akatsuki, in which Pain was rumored to be the leader, has yet to discuss the possibility of stopping the war and plans to offer aid to the anti-fascist faction should the talks fail. There were more discussions after the second speech. It seems that the emergency meeting in Iowa would take a long time before it would finally concede. Hyugakure Council Chambers. The Yamato and Asuka clan were having a discussion on the very same topic that the Council of Iowa was having. With Tatsuzo being the Hyukage, the leader of the council was giving a speech on the same topic. We have received news that Odo plans to support Danzo's regime in the event that negotiations would fail. We know Orochimaru is desperate for morale after his bodyguards have defected to our side. Danzo's regime has spreaded the virus of hatred from the village to the rest of the southern region of Hai no Kuni, and constant fears of civil war within Hai no Kuni would break out. Our allies in the Mokushi continent have expressed their concerns for the civil war, as they are too busy fighting the Fire Nation every single day. Kyotaro Asuka announced. We are prepared to risk war with Odo if it meddles in Konoha's affairs, which we felt that it should deal with the problem. Just then, a sentry entered the council chamber with a message that was going to be given to Tatsuzo. Hyukage-sama, there's a group of mysterious shinobi with black cloaks with red clouds coming in for a negotiation, the sentry said as the said group entered. The leader with the Rinnegan activated stepped forward. We would like to announce that we're no longer hunting for the Great Nine Jinchuriki, and that I would like to see my long-lost nephew. Pain said as two other cloaked figures also stepped forward, one of them having a giant sword while the other having his Sharingan on. We would like to offer our services to your village, and to settle in. We're tired of being labeled as missing nin after a good long set of years. Itachi said. Tatsuzo listened as the council members talked amongst themselves. We would accept you all, but in return you all must help with the training with the heir of the first avatar. Tatsuzo replied as Pain nodded. My nephew will be trained, for I have owed my sister a debt that I can never repay. Pain said. All right, Uzumaki-san. Naruto is currently headed for the capital as the emperor wanted to see him. It would be best if you all went there. Kyotaro said as Kisame stepped forward. We will also look for the remaining members of the Seven Swordsmen of Kiri as we go along. Kisame said as Itachi bowed to the Hyukage. All right. As of this day forward, you 9 are commissioned as members of the new Frost Anbu Elite, which is recently established with Nagato as the head of the elite, and Itachi as the head of Frost Anbu. The last leader had retired, so we need your skills in raising capable shinobi. Tatsuzo replied as the Akatsuki left the council chambers. While the Akatsuki were strolling in the village, a certain blonde-haired explosives user came up to them. Don't we go look for the Kyuubi vessel, he said. Deidara, we're not going to extract the beast from him anymore, because we're now part of the most powerful village in the world. Pain replied as they went out the village gates. The now ex-Akatsuki hightailed it towards the capital, where an inevitable showdown awaits. Mokushi, capital of Hu no Tikoku. Naruto and the rest of the group had gotten off the train once it had arrived at the capital. Almost at once there was a soldier that came up to them. Namikaze-sama, there is a carriage for you and your friends. Please follow me, he said as they were being led to a carriage parked in the city streets. The capital was the most majestic sight that any shinobi has ever seen, with so many buildings and homes on almost every ring that was built. The person that was driving the carriage explained to the group about the layout of the city once they started to leave the train station. The capital of Mokushi was built almost 9,000 years ago when Avatar Mokushi needed a place where his people can be safe in the event of an attack. We have 3 rings in here, just like the Earth Kingdom capital of Ba Sing Se. The coach explained as the carriage passed 3 sets of the fortifications. The outer ring is comprised of ordinary people that recently settled in, as well as merchants. The middle ring is comprised of middle-class people that works for positions within the government, as well as districts where we conduct our finances and education are. The upper ring is basically the place of upper-class people, as well as where His Majesty the Emperor Onogoro XVII resides. The carriage had passed the middle ring when suddenly there was a disturbance. The coach had stopped the carriage, and the HU squad went out to see 5 Konoha Junin, in which 4 of them were familiar to Naruto, Neji and Tenten. Mamoru pulled out a bone katana and pointed it at them. Who goes there, and what do you want? He yelled. The masked copy Nin responded in a serious voice. We're not here to capture Naruto, although I would like an explanation as to why he is with you. Kakashi asked. Mamoru then activated his Sharingan. Kakashi Hatake, I presume. The Hu Junin snarled as he tightened his grip on the bone katana. He looked around the group, and was surprised to see the Genjutsu specialist. You must be Kurenai, right? Yes, Mamoru Hibiki. She replied as Guy stepped forward. I'm sorry to interrupt this unyouthful moment, but we need a reason as to why you have 3x Konoha shinobi inducted into your village's shinobi ranks. The spandex-clad Junin asked. We also need to know as to why you guys have also included 9S class missing nin today. What are you talking about? Mamoru asked, but he was interrupted by the appearance of the 9 cloaked figures. The Konoha shinobi then went to their battle stances as one of the cloaked figures just shushined behind the copy nin and pasted a kunai behind his back. So fast. Kakashi thought as the intruder activated the Sharingan. So Itachi, you're here for a rematch. I'm not interested in this petty squabble. We're here as members of Hyugakure's Frost Anbu and its elite squad to protect the Kyuubi vessel. Itachi replied. The Uchiha prodigy then turned to Mamoru and Kimimaro, who happened to be in his Kagaya battle stance. So you're the famous Mamoru Hibiki. You have the Sharingan, so you're related to me. But you also have the Shikatsunyaku, so you're related to this Kagaya here. He pointed at Kimimaro as the said Kagaya glared. You're the guy that forced Orochimaru to seek a new vessel. Kimimaro said as Itachi glanced at him. My foolish Ototo was the one to seek the least resistance to gaining power, although he needs to know why I killed the Uchiha clan, and the truth behind it. Itachi said as Mamoru stepped in between the two new cousins. All right, that's enough you two. Mamoru said as Kisame sighed in relief. He then turned to the swordsman. What is it, Hoshigaki-san? Mamoru, we have to go to the palace if we all want to see the emperor himself. The ex-Kiri nin said as they walked up the stairs that led to the door of the palace. The group went back to the carriage and resumed their ride to the upper ring. When they got off the carriage close to the palace, there were palace sentries that stood at attention as Naruto and the other 7HU shinobi had gotten off. The Konoha shinobi arrived a minute later, as well as the ex-Akatsuki members. The palace guards that guarded the palace were accompanying a regal figure so majestic that they would call him a god. One of the palace guards led the blonde Jinchuriki to the palace facing the entire city. Naruto then bowed to the figure, who then bowed him back. The emperor then turned to the populace of Mokushi and was brimming with excitement. People of Hu no Tikoku, I have been blessed with the information that revealed the return of the last Namikaze, descendant of the late Avatar Mokushi who built our country and our world, the regal emperor said as the crowd continued to cheer. He then gestured to Naruto, who then presented himself to the people that were waving and cheering below. After the short speech given by His Majesty the Divine Emperor, Naruto was being led to the palace chambers by the palace guardsmen that were busy maintaining order inside the palace walls. Kakashi and Guy were amazed at the sight of the interior of the palace. This has gotta be the most youthful thing I've ever seen. Guy said as Kakashi sighed. An entire place made out of ice and snow, and to top it off, they're not melting. The copy nin sighed as Yamato and another palace sentry came up to them. What is it? Talks between Danzo's route and Tsunade-sama's faction have failed, Kakashi-senpai. Right now, there is chaos in the village. There have been reports of Oto shinobi being sighted near the village walls engaging Hu shinobi, but it's yet to be confirmed. Yamato reported. What else, Yamato? Kakashi asked the Mokuten user. Hu has also sent reinforcements to Aiwa, Kiri, and Kumo. Suna has decided to back the anti-fascist faction despite the majority of the council deciding to aid Danzo's regime, he replied. On the non-shinobi side, there has been a rebel uprising in the southern parts of Hai no Kuni. Send our forces to suppress the rebels in the southern region of Hai right away, the emperor commanded as the sentry rushed to send the message to a general. If civil war breaks out in Hai no Kuni, we have to try and stop it from getting bloodier. Yes, Your Majesty, Mamoru said as Jirobo came up to them with Kidomaru and Sakin tagging behind them. What is it? There's a couple of Kazan no Kuni riflemen at the gates with a diplomat wanting to talk to His Majesty. Jirobo said as a middle-aged man came up to them. Well, what can I do for you? The emperor asked the diplomat. Our nation has wished to form an alliance with your nation. We may be rich, but we have been forced by the rebel faction to support their cause. We may have a demon problem in our borders, but we have never killed even a single person containing a demon inside, the diplomat said. The emperor nodded as he signed a document that the diplomat had brought with him. The diplomat then left the palace, accompanied by the riflemen that were assigned to guard him. A forested base outside Konoha. Tsunade was not a happy person after major recent events have happened. First, her surrogate Odoto has been banished and marked for life, and then the council itself has been purged with 4 clans being banished and labeled as undesirable, and now this. She and Jiraiya of the legendary Sannin were now also marked for life. As the said slug Sannin inspected the number of shinobi loyal to her cause, she noticed that there were 5 Junin that were missing. Where are Kakashi, Gai, Asuma, Kurenai and Yamato? Tsunade asked one of the shinobi. A scarred man replied for them. Tsunade-sama, Kakashi and the rest of his squad were in HU to go look for Naruto. The scarred man replied, causing the faction to gasp in shock. You don't mean that the late Yondaime is actually descended from the very man that created the world? A shinobi asked. Yes, Rado. It appears that the moment Naruto has been exiled, the other villages was dying to come up to him and convince him to enlist in their ranks. But he accepted the shinobi ranks of the most powerful shinobi village in the world. Jiraiya replied as a purple-haired woman with a trench coat and another purple-haired woman with an Anbu mask on came up to the slug Sannin. We would like to go to HU with Kakashi-senpai. The Anbu chick said as the snake mistress nodded. Tsunade then nodded as she explained the situation. After hearing of Kakashi's whereabouts, the 2 purple-haired Kunoichi set off for HU no Tikoku. Konohagakure no Sato. A lone root Anbu shinobi stood guard in the tower looking out for the fugitives that might come in. He heard about Ichiraku Ramen being closed down due to the fact that the ramen chef was one of the few people that was accused of treason by feeding the demon ingrate ramen. He sighed as the night went by, nothing seemed to happen. All of a sudden, he was struck with a kunai behind his back. The sentry died, but not before screaming out in agony. The nearby squad heard what was happening and rushed to the tower, only to find the Anbu that was loyal to the ex-Godime. Well. It isn't every day that traitors are usually attacking by nightfall. One squad leader said as she got out a katana. The anti-fascist Anbu then got out a kunai and rushed to attack her. Kaiden Jutsu. The attack that the root Anbu used was ineffective against the Anbu that was armed with a kunai. A moment later, there were sounds of battle that were being heard from within the village. Drive out the traitors. For the sake of the new world and that's yet to come. A.N. This is Reza Burl's quote from GSD after Lacus goes seed. Within a few minutes, the root Anbu had routed the anti-fascist faction out of the village as Tsunade looked on from within the shadows. She then called the squad leaders in a meeting. We need to gain control of the key parts of the village. The deserted Hyuga compound would serve as a headquarters for our supplies and weapons. Tsunade explained as one squad leader rushed to them. What is it, Katetsu? Tsunade-sama, there's been a sighting of Odo shinobi engaging the combined Kiri and HU shinobi. Katetsu said as a body of an Odo nin fell down from the sky. Tsunade cursed herself for not knowing about the aid that other villages were offering. Just then, Jiraiya was being cornered by 5 root Anbu nin armed with katanas and kusari gamas while using genjutsu. Tsunade, we must retreat farther. Jiraiya said as the slug Sannin rushed to the root Anbu Kunoichi and gave her a knockout punch in the gut. Our plans for capturing the key areas of the village must be on hold for now. Tsunade replied as her army retreated away from within the site of the village. Meanwhile, Danzo, Homura and Kaharu were discussing the battle at the Hokage Tower as the root Anbu shinobi cheered at their victory. Well, Tsunade was certainly smart at how she knew that it's useless to keep resisting against our might. Danzo said as Kaharu sighed. She is buying time. As for the demon ingrate and his monstrous friends, they're out of our sight. I mean, We're in this mess ever since we exiled the filthy demon. We got other villages and the daimyos of every country demanding that we clear its name and pardon its crimes. Koharu explained. We even got Kazan no Kuni planning to ally with HU, and we are losing more allies because of a demon. It's high time that they learned that they cannot associate themselves with undesirables. Easy for you to say, Koharu. Homura said as Koharu and Danzo listened. The Uchiha has defected again to Oto, and the only person good enough to kill the demon without the Uchiha's help is the Haruno girl. She needs to get trained up. I have the Haruno girl under intense training. Danzo replied as he got out 3 cups and a kettle of tea. He poured the tea onto the cup and gave the other 2 to the council elders. She shows promise of being my successor, if she had focused her training earlier when she was a genin. I've promoted her to chunin for her merit and for her part in kicking out the demon. But she needs to learn more on the art of demon exterminating. Hold on a minute, Homura said as the other 2 glanced at him. The demon Uzumaki holds the Kyubi, right? The current case cage holds the Shukaku and the demon bitch who holds the Nibi lives in Kumo. So, we have to kill the great 9 Jinchuriki to execute our plans for our new world order. You mean there's more of those creatures? Koharu asked. The other demon containers are found in HU, but the villagers there haven't done their duty as human beings and killed them. It seems that HU has also taken in talented people that could have gone to Konoha. The ones that are fleeing Kiri after the purge. Homura replied back. Just then, a pink-haired Kunoichi entered the office as she saluted them in a fascist salute. Ah, Haruno-san, what can I do for you? Homura-sama, I need to know where can I get more power to kill the demon Baka Naruto? Sakura asked. Danzo was the one that replied to her question. Haruno-san, the only way to achieve more power is that you must go to Orochimaru and ask for a cursed seal. He will give it to you as he gave the Uchiha one. Danzo replied as Sakura bowed. Anything else? Can I be in charge of the death squad that will cleanse out the rest of those ingrates? Sakura said. Haruno-san, you have our permission. In fact, this is your mission. Objective is to find and kill the demon community and burn their bodies. Use any methods necessary. Danzo instructed as she nodded. He then gave her the salute. Victory. Victory. Sakura replied with the salute. She then left the Hokage Tower to go look for her new squad, who were waiting for her in the plaza. We've got a mission to complete. What is it? One Chunin asked. We're going demon hunting. The pink-haired Kunoichi replied as her squad cheered for the opportunity to kill more demons. But it was simply killing people that had a demon sealed inside them. Oh, how humanity can commit such a monstrosity, no one knows why. Mokushi. The mixed group of HU, Konoha and the ex-Akatsuki had left the palace with supplies given to them courtesy of the emperor and his subjects. Naruto was given a new armor that would allow him to repel kunai and senbon from piercing his body, and Mamoru was also given an armor that would have him mistaken for a samurai. They rode the carriage to the outer ring, where a train will take the HU shinobi to the port of Karuk. Mamoru was explaining to his group about the trip. From the capital, we're going to Karuk by train. Once we reach the port, we're taking a ferry to the Northern Water Tribe, he explained. For this trip, I hope that you guys have a parka that is suited for the climate, because the weather there will be a little colder than Hyugakur itself. We checked our gear for our stuff, and it's there. Kimimaro said as Naruto checked his bag for the stuff that he needed for the trip. Mamoru-sensei, when we're finished with waterbending, how are we going to the next place for our lesson in this earthbending? Naruto asked. We're going to have to fly by a sky bison, but I haven't seen one ever. Mamoru replied as Tayuya came up to them. I know, Tayuya. The train is here, and we're going there now. The HU group, plus the ex-Akatsuki had boarded the train. The conductor took their tickets as usual, and asked if they needed anything. None of the group needed anything at the moment, but Itachi requested 3 chocolate boxes of Pocky and Kisame requested 2 boxes of strawberry Pocky. As Mamoru sat down the seat in the compartment, he started to fall asleep. Flashback to 13 years ago. Mamoru's POV. I was crouching down on a ditch on a dark night with a couple of my friends from the Frost Anbu as part of my village's secret covert aid to Iowa's war effort. We were surveying the area when one Iowa Chunin ran back. Flee on sight. Flee right away. The yellow flash has been sighted. He yelled as the Iowa shinobi retreated. I came up to the messenger and asked him, "Where is the yellow flash?" I asked as the messenger was shocked. "Are you crazy? Even for a ninja from HU, you can't defeat the yellow Floridas," he began, but I had already ran. I started to make some hand signs in anticipation, and then I whispered my jutsu. Kage Hiraishin no Jutsu. My movements were precise in the shadows as a blonde-haired Junin surveyed for any intruder. Suddenly, I got out my katana and started to silently kill the Konoha shinobi that was with the yellow flash. He saw what was happening and started to fight me. He threw a three-prong kunai, which I caught. Normally, our Iowa allies are afraid about this kunai that I've captured because it would signal the yellow flash to use his Hiraishin, which I modified it. Once I saw him, I activated my Sharingan and started to duel him. The yellow flash started to gather chakra on his palm and I started to do the same thing. The only difference was that the chakra in my palm was spinning with electricity as it began to form in a Manji Shuriken form. Immediately, we charged towards each other with the intention to kill. Rasengan. Raiden Rasengan. Our attacks clashed, but my Raiden Rasengan overpowered its predecessor, and I slammed it on the yellow flash's chest. Suddenly, he vanished in a pop, meaning that I've taken out his Kage Bunshin. My senses quickly picked up his scent and started to place himself under a genjutsu that is effective for only a few minutes, but it's enough for me to run. You see, I am a star prodigy of HU, but I was originally from Kiri. I graduated to Genin at the age of 6, activated my Sharingan at the age of 5, and acquired the Mangekyo at the same age that I became a Genin. I became Chunin at the age of 8 and I was promoted to Junin at the age of 9. I joined the Anbu Black Ops at the age of 11, and was recommended for Frost Anbu as in Frost Anbu Commander. My abilities to copy the opponent's attack and modifying it have granted me the title of Shimokami no HU or the Divine Frost of HU. End flashback. Back to the present. The train was zooming along when Mamoru woke up. He noticed that Jirobo was eating a bag of chips, and Kitamaru was drinking a box of soya milk. The HU Junin noticed that he himself was hungry, so he went to the cafeteria and bought a hamburger. Just then, the train's PA system had acted up. "We are approaching the port city of Karuk. Please get your gear and be ready to disembark from the train after it stops at the train station." When the train stopped at the station, the HU shinobi had gotten off the train with their gear on. Naruto was looking around the city of Karuk like it was just created on Christmas. "Mamoru-sensei, which ship do we use to go to this place?" Naruto asked. "The ship will be a warship, since it's much safer." Mamoru replied as they spotted a warship that was slightly bigger than an average size of a Fire Nation ship. The guard that was assigned to guard the ship gave a nod of recognition as Naruto and his friends had boarded the ship. The journey lay still ahead for Naruto as the ship prepares to sail towards the North Pole. HU Tsuchi border. Kakashi was relieved that his student was safe, but in the hands of the people that would have trained him better than he would. Seeing as he played favorites with Squad 7 like training Sasuke and ignoring Sakura and the blonde, the copy nin felt a little guilty that he didn't provide mentorship for the son of his late sensei. As they were resting up in the border between HU no Tikoku and the Tsuchi no Kuni, he was busy reading the same orange book all over again. Guy and Kurenai were getting anxious about their friend who is corrupted deeper into the world of pervertedness. Finally, Kurenai grabbed the book and pulled the pages out. "Hey!" Kakashi yelped as his book was ripped apart. "What did you go do that for? Kakashi, haven't you forgotten that there is a war, and that smut that you're reading could be a liability?" Kurenai said snidely as Guy stood by. "Geez, Can't you read something else other than this piece of crap? Well, it's the only thing I have right now, but I read a lot of Ika books. Kakashi replied as Guy pulled him closer. My eternal rival, it's quite unyouthful for you to read that kind of thing. I suggest that you start reading something that's a little more youthful. Guy said as Asuma sighed before pulling out a pack of cigarettes but stopped as he was sensing something. What is it, Asuma? I think that Anko and that Anbu chick are here. Asuma replied as a certain snake mistress and the Anbu chick had arrived at the campsite. What is it, Anko? Well, we detected a large number of Iwa and Kiri shinobi joining up with HU shinobi at Tanzaku City and they seem to have gone to fight the Oto Nin that was going to aid Danzo's regime, the snake mistress said as Kakashi sighed. What is it, Kakashi-kun? We spotted the blonde Gaki Naruto with none other than Mamoru Hibiki, the copy nin replied. There were gasps from all the shinobi present. As for the rest of my genin squad, Sasuke has gone again to Oto and Sakura is now a part of Root. I feel sorry for you, Kakashi-senpai. The purple-haired Anbu chick said as Kurenai and Asuma looked on. Asuma, about your genin squad. They are okay with Shikamaru Nara leading a small squad consisting of genin and Ino Yamanaka is in charge of interrogation. Choji Akamichi is in charge of supply personnel, and that's about it for your team. Thank goodness Shikamaru can finally act like a real chunin. Also, thank you for this information, Yugo-san. Asuma said as he started to smoke a cigarette. What about Kurenai's team? The Hyuga heiress is planning on joining Hyu's shinobi ranks. Seeing as her clan is going there anyway. Kiba Inuzuka and Shino Aburame are in charge of reconnaissance. Yugo replied as Kurenai sighed in relief. It seems that Guy-san and Kakashi-senpai are affected the most. I understand. With Lee under my wing, we cannot be defeated. Of course we'll have to go look for more youthful prospects for Konoha's green beasts. Guy said, causing a coughing fit from Kakashi and a HMPH sound from Kurenai. I also know that Mamoru and his squad are looking for Raiga Kuroseki to be included in their ranks, since he used to be a part of Kiri's shinobi ranks, as well as having the shark man that I managed to beat when he and Itachi went to Konoha to go look for Naruto. There was a pause. Then, Asuma finished his smoke and said, we have to get going if we want to report to Tsunade-sama about Naruto's whereabouts. As the Konoha anti-fascist Junins were speeding back to Konoha, they made a stop in the border with Kusa no Kuni for restocking supplies. After reaching the frontier with Hai no Kuni, Kakashi and Guy scouted ahead for enemy ninja in a forest close to the same place where Tayuya was revived by Mamoru. Kakashi then summoned a nindog to find any scent of the last battle. Well, we should look for any clues as to why Mamoru would revive the ninja that helped kill the Sandaime, he explained as Asuma and Anko went to a river to find clues as well. After finding somewhat useless clues regarding the retrieval mission, they hightailed it back to the base where Kiba and Shino were standing guard. Anything unusual, Kiba? No, Kakashi-sensei. Nothing yet so far, and most of us that were fighting to retrieve the Uchiha traitor were so angry at the council for kicking Naruto out. What's worse is that my clan were also labeled undesirables, along with the Nara, Akamichi, Yamanaka and Hyuga clans. Kiba said with a hint of anger. I mean, why blame Naruto for the traitor's defection anyway? Just then, Jiraiya and Tsunade were returning from a recon mission that was deemed an utmost importance. The Toad Sanin sighed at the sound of anger in the question that was asked from the majority of the faction that trusted the blonde Jinchuriki. I guess that I have a lot of explaining to do. The Toad Sanin said as everyone in the base listened. The reason why no one was told that Naruto is the container of the Kyuubi is because the Sandaime made a law that forbade anyone from telling him the truth. Most of you would have learned that the Yondaime killed the Kyuubi. Well, that is wrong. The truth is that he used a jutsu that requires him to sacrifice his life to stop the Kyuubi's soul. He sealed it into a baby at that time. From there, many villagers saw Naruto as the reincarnation of the Kyuubi. That is why he experienced savage persecution. What's worse is that the majority of the villagers were plotting the Yondaime's demise because of his policies regarding the regular Jinchuriki that were residing in the village. It seemed clear that it was Danzo that was responsible for spreading hatred to the villagers about the Namikaze clan. So you mean, Naruto is related to the Yondaime? Shikamaru asked. Yes, Naruto is the last Namikaze and the son of Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki. What's troubling me is that we don't know where he is at the moment. Jiraiya said as Kakashi cleared his throat. What is it, Kakashi? We spotted him with the Hibiki prodigy. Kakashi replied, causing a series of gasps from the majority of the faction. Also, the ninja that used to work IWTH Orochimaru had joined Hyugakure's shinobi ranks, as well as the Akatsuki. I suspected that Naruto is somehow related to Nagato, seeing as he is Kushina's brother and the descendant of the Rokudo Sennin. Minato, on the other hand, comes from a family of elemental manipulators. People that can manipulate all 4 or 5 elements. I have known that Minato and Naruto are descended from the man that created the entire world, who calls himself Avatar Mokushi. Jiraiya said as Shikamaru sighed. Seeing as Naruto has returned to his clan's birthplace, it would only intensify the conflict, because Danzo also called for the destruction of Hu no Tikoku. Shikamaru and Choji looked down on the ground with guilt. They knew that their blonde hyperactive friend would never be the same person again, and that they would never see him become Hokage as he had always said. Well, Neji was partially right about Naruto not becoming Hokage. Shikamaru said as Kiba closed his eyes. But the idea that Naruto would become the Hyukage would be surprising. But what about the Uchiha? One of the Junin asked. What will happen to them? I mean, how did this mess happen in the first place, with Sasuke wanting power and Itachi killing the clan? How was our village established? Jiraiya sighed as the question came up. He started to explain as everyone listened. Many people thought that the one shinobi village per country was first established by the Uchiha and Senju clans. However, it was none other than Avatar Mokushi that established Hyugakure as a shinobi village, with his best friend Matsuda Asuka taking the crown of the emperor of Hu no Tikoku and himself taking the role of Shadaime Hyukage. That was 10,000 years ago, with the world in a new stage. The founders of Konoha were the Uchiha and the Senju clan, but there were 3 founders of Hyugakure. They are the Namikaze, Asuka and Yamato clans. Fortunately, the founding clans were friends with each other, unlike what happened with Madara Uchiha being killed by Hashirama Senju. Over time, Hyugakure kept its status as a superpower. It wasn't until 200 years ago that other shinobi villages were being established. The Uchiha clan were once powerful in terms of skill. Over time, they were becoming a puppet of the Senju, and with Madara dead, the Senju clan were able to rule Konoha for a long time until the Sandaime took power. However, the inner conflict within Konoha is actually splitted into 3 parts, with Danzo on one side, the Senju loyalists, which consist of us, and the remains of the Uchiha clan and its loyalists that migrated to Hu after its demise and the bloodline purge of Kiri. But why would the Senju clan want to control the Uchiha clan? Shikamaru asked. Because they see them as a threat to its rule. However, the Senju clan were moderates, while the Uchiha were radical socialist with power to both clans. Danzo, on the other hand, is a radical fascist with his own faction. Don't forget that Hyugakure as well as other villages operate with a political spectrum. While the Uchiha clan struggled with the intense discrimination, some members migrated to Hu while others migrated to Kiri. One of the migrants to Kiri was the same Uchiha that eventually married a member of the Hibiki clan, which in turn married one of the Kagaya clan members. Jiraiya said. There was one information that was kept intact from all of us. The spy that worked for Konoha within the Uchiha clan was none other than Itachi Uchiha. There were gasps from all the faction, with Kiba getting angry. Finally, he asked, so why did the Uchiha clan suffered intense discrimination, and after that the villagers discriminated Naruto? You see, The Uchiha clan was the only clan powerful enough to control the Kyuubi that is sealed in Naruto. If they knew what was going on in the village, they would have migrated to HU. For HU can take in many clans that were being discriminated, like the Uchiha and Hyuga clans. If I was to ask any HU ninja, they would have answered that the Uchiha clan should have been the real rulers of Konoha. And war would have been averted when the time comes for the two villages to butt heads. But what really puzzles all of us is that which faction is good, and which faction is evil. The Toad Sanin replied. Many villagers suspected that the Uchiha clan was the one behind the Kyuubi's attack on Konoha, although that it was a natural disaster. However, after the Yondaime defeated it, the intense discrimination then turned to Naruto as he was a target of discrimination for what the Kyuubi has done. We really don't know what's behind this war and how it will change the world. The demise of the Uchiha clan was the outcome of their attempted coup d'état after the discrimination became real. What we didn't know is that Danzo had labeled the rebel Uchiha as undesirables, and that some Uchiha were not labeled undesirables, due to the inner conflict within the Uchiha. It's still a mystery of what are we fighting for. The crowd was shocked at the information that they learned after one Junin's question. But there were still many more mysteries that was yet to be discovered. I have yet another question to ask you readers. Should Shien be included in the Naruharem package or be paired up with Kimimaro? If you all don't know who the hell Shien is, watch Naruto Shippuden the movie.